The jab is the first punch people learn, and it's the one combat sport fighters rely on the most. Boxers master it, MMA fighters live by it, and low-skill wannabe tough guys copy it blindly, thinking what's used in the ring will destroy you in the streets. That assumption is flat out wrong. But because the jab is so common, there's a very real chance you're gonna face it on the street. And today, I'm gonna show you how to shut it down for good. Let's check it out. In my last video titled Why the Jab Sucks for Self-Defense, the Truth You Need to Know, I tore apart the jab and exposed it for what it really is. A weak, half-assed, sport-bred probe that gets your face caved in during real violence. Zero commitment, zero neutralizing power. Delusional assumptions dragged in from the safety of a boxing ring where you've got big gloves, rules, and a ref to save your ass when it goes wrong. I stand by every single word. The jab is absolute garbage for reality-based self-defense. Full stop. And if you haven't seen the video breakdown yet, go watch it and thank me later. Here's the ugly truth. People are sheep. They follow what they've seen without understanding the context or the consequences. They cling to stupid techniques even when they suck, especially the weekend warriors and gym bros who think copying boxers and MMA fighters makes them dangerous. So guess what? That pathetic jab is still going to be thrown by some wannabe tough guy who thinks he's clever. And even though the jab is garbage offensively, you still need to know how to shut it down the second it comes flying at your face. First, let's address the misconception. What you do in the ring or what you do in the octagon or the cage is not what's going to translate into the street. The idea that Tommy and I are going to square off, and this is one of the biggest misconceptions in the martial arts world, okay? They think that in a street fight, we're gonna square off. I'm gonna throw a jab at Tommy, he's gonna parry it, then Tommy's gonna throw, I'm gonna parry it. We're gonna go back and forth with this game of tag. This is bullshit. This is not how the real world goes down. Now I'm gonna show you, if you have one of these clowns that comes at you, he's in a fighting stance and he starts jabbing at you in a fight, how that will not translate into real world combat and how you don't fall into this bait, because that's what it is, it's bait. And if you're smart and if you're trained properly, you're not gonna play any of this nonsense. First, let's talk about how this happened. It just doesn't appear out of thin air. Something develops. There's gonna be some type of pre-contact dialogue. People don't just show up out of thin air, get into a fighting stance, and start jabbing at you. What happened prior to this? This is the important part of this. You have to understand the context of the actual fight. So, in the course of this argument, or in the course of this dialogue, something has happened where this individual got upset, got mad, and wants to resort to fisted blows. So, we're in a pre-contact scenario, okay? We're gonna assume a de-escalation stance. And I talk about this in my books, in my videos, in my War Machine memberships. The de-escalation stance is critical during the pre-contact stages of combat, and it applies to defending against the jab. So the strategy is to assume a de-escalation stance. This is going to occupy the center line. Really important. If you have the center line occupied using this pre-contact physiology, the de-escalation stance, and I talk about tactical stances in my book, Stand and Deliver. And again, links down below if you want to check the book out. This de-escalation stance negates the jab. Think about it. We have gloves on Tommy because it creates a greater illustration of his hand compared to mine, the contrast of the white versus the black here. So when we're squared off, again, the mentality most martial artists have, and specifically the sport people, combat sport people have, is that there's gonna be this exchange where I jab at Tommy and he parries, we move around, then Tommy throws his punch, I parry, now I throw a punch, we go back and forth positioning. This is not street fighting, this is not real world combat, this is bullshit. Okay? These are people who have no idea what real combat is because it doesn't happen that way in the streets. So think about it. If I occupy the center line, Tommy, if I'm occupying the center line, are you likely to throw that jab?
I'd probably throw a hook. I can't get through.
He would either throw a hook, he would throw overhead strikes, he would close in and maybe throw uppercuts, he would body tackle, maybe he would do a single leg takedown. He could be an MMA fighter or a boxer, it doesn't matter. But these are the strategies that he's going to apply. When this is occupied, he could jab at your hand. Tommy, throw a couple jabs at my hand. He's not hitting any vital target, okay? And I'm not gonna stand there and just get hit in the hand. This is combat. This is real fighting, guys. The minute it's on, I'm going in. I'm closing that distance gap. I'm gonna crash that line and I'm gonna wreck this guy. And the same thing has to apply in any self-defense situation that's legally justified. You don't play this game of tag back and forth. And I just don't understand people who really believe this stuff. They really think this is how it goes down. Unfortunately, there are self-defense instructors who think that you could stay outside the range of a jab during a fight, okay? Let me tell you something. Anybody worth his salt, any boxer, MMA fighter, is not, Tommy, get into a stance, is not gonna be throwing, Tommy, don't stay out of the range, okay? Is not gonna be throwing jabs out here, okay? That's stupid, okay? No one's gonna do that. A really seasoned or even an amateur boxer knows you don't throw your shot until you got the hit. They're not gonna throw these punches outside of the range of combat. They're gonna wait. You're gonna close in, they're gonna close in. There'll be some circumstance that brings you closer inside that 3 to 4 foot range. Very, very important. So the idea and that notion that, oh, you just stay out of the range while he's jabbing is pure, absolute garbage. And it's being taught by people who have no clue about real world combat. It doesn't happen that way. So for the people out there who say that they've seen two guys square off where they jab or they set up their combinations in the street fight, yes, it does happen. But it's stupid, and it doesn't mean you have to be stupid too. It doesn't mean you follow that strategy, because guess what? It never works in your favor, okay? Here's an example of how it goes down. Tommy and I have some sort of beef with each other, okay? We start talking smack. Then finally, someone puts up his hands and they start moving around, and then someone decides to set up the jab and they throw their jab, or he throws the jab, and they get into this pseudo sparring match on the street. That is stupidity. That is not taking advantage of pre-contact strategy. That's something you never ever want to do. No one's gonna force you to square up, talk smack, and then start jabbing it out. You have control of the situation. You can plan the outcome. And there are instructors out there who are saying that you don't parry a jab. That is absolutely categorically wrong. And anybody who teaches that has no exposure to real world combat and doesn't understand the totality of real combat. Of course, if I'm in a situation with Tommy, okay, and I de-escalate, my hands are occupying the center line, he's likely not gonna throw the jab. But that is the beginning stage of combat. And remember Murphy's Law, okay? Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. There are many times in the course of a fight, let's say for example, I'm de-escalating, I legally and morally strike first at Tommy and I hit him with that palm heel. Tommy reels back, his probable reaction dynamic that I talk about in my videos can occur, and he's still active. Maybe I tripped and I couldn't close the distance gap, and now he's got distance and now he retaliates immediately with a jab. I can parry it. You should parry it. Again, if it's in range, you can make contact with the target. You have to understand, not everything is going to be this structured blueprint. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you have an instructor who says, you do not parry against a jab because jabs are so fast and you have no idea who you're fighting. He could be a pro boxer, or he could be an amateur boxer, or an MMA champion. I don't give a damn. You still have to parry it, okay? It's very important. Either get hit or redirect the shot. Plain and simple. So for people who study exotic martial arts who don't understand what a parry is a quick, forceful slap that redirects a linear shot. You're using the palm, okay? The hands are compact. Now, MMA fighters and boxers, they're used to having gloves, okay? And a lot of them do not train barehanded. So if you guys want to be prepared for the street, you need to have fist contact on palm with no gloves, no bag gloves, nothing. Bare hands. That's how you get used to it, because these hands, his hand and my hands, are a lot smaller now that you don't have gloves on. And it changes things dramatically, especially in a street fight when there's an adrenaline spike and chaos is erupting. People don't train for this, and that's why they're not prepared. One of the reasons, one of the many reasons they're not prepared for the street. And for those people who say, what happens if you're faced with a guy and he's jabbing, even though you have a de-escalation stance, and you need to end the fight, I need to end the fight quickly. Let's say he has buddies who are coming around the corner, he's blocking an escape route, I have to get past him, I need to end this fight like that, and I don't want to get into this back and forth punching, back and forth sparring match in the street fight. Well, that's when we use something like CFA's shielding wedge technique. And I've talked about this in a previous video, and it's talked about in my feral fighting program. I don't have time in this video to cover it, but I'm just letting you know, we have every single avenue covered when it talks about dealing with a guy who's jabbing, trying to set up his combination punching that they do in the ring or they do in the cage. We are always one step ahead, and you, as a reality-based self-defense student, must do the same. Hey, we're about to get back into the video, but let me ask you something. Do you want to legitimately accelerate your self-defense skills? And are you sick of clickbait videos teaching absolute garbage? Or tired of being misled by unqualified, wannabe experts who have zero credibility or experience? If the answer is yes, now is the time to join my War Machine memberships. As a member, you're going to get exclusive access to in-depth training videos, exclusive full-feature video content, downloadable training PDFs, and direct insights you're not going to find anywhere else. Plus, you're going to have direct access to me in the comments section of all my videos. So if you have questions, you're going to get real, detailed answers from me and not some random keyboard warrior. So if you're serious about mastering real-world combat skills, hit the join button below and start training like a true war machine. Now, let's get back to the lesson. Another argument that's presented is, let's say he's throwing a jab, you think it's a jab, and you parry, but he's actually holding a knife, okay? First of all, it's true. There are circumstances and environments many times where someone is receiving a blow, but it's not a blow, it's an actual knife attack. And it happens to law enforcement all the time. They always say, I never saw the knife, I thought it was a punch. So what some self-defense instructors argue is that if it is a knife coming at you like a jab and you parry it, that's dangerous. No, it's dangerous if you don't parry it, because that's gonna go into your throat, your eye socket, or right through your chest. You have to understand, whenever you're dealing with a knife attack, there's lots of different angles, 360-degree angles. There's the sewing machine pumping action. They're thrust directly to the face. You have to have a defensive measure against that. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a video about knife defense skills, but the idea, Tommy, why don't you just get in a stance? The idea that Tommy thinks that this is a jab, but it's an actual blade, and if I'm driving it straight into his center line, into his throat or his face, and I'm talking about a real committed shot. I'm not talking about where he's just trying to nick you with it. I'm talking he's just trying to drive it straight in. Tommy is going to deflect it off the line. Same thing, he's going to parry it. So the parry is critical in deflecting this knife attack that's going in a linear form of attack. Okay, think about this. And I ask you this question. If someone's coming at you with a blade, of course you run. Please don't bother me with that nonsense that you should run. Of course you should run, but sometimes you can't. Okay, and you assume a knife defense stance, which is something we teach in contemporary fighting arts that nobody else teaches because, I don't know, maybe they haven't done their homework. But if someone's coming at you full force with a knife drive right to the center line, right into the chest, right into the face, you must parry it. And if you disagree with me, please post a video showing me what you would do against that attack. I would love to see it, because guess what? If you don't parry this, you're going to get cut or you're going to die. Okay, and don't do me the whole disservice of saying I'm going to move around, stay at a range. I'm talking where you can't move, you can't get out of range. What are you going to do against this drive coming straight at your face full force? You have to parry it and redirect it to a manageable angle of control. That's it, period, simple. As I said earlier in this video, the jab is a feckless technique on the street. It's weak, misplaced, and it's built on assumptions that don't survive real violence. But there's still plenty of idiots out there who will still try to use it anyway. And by applying CFA's principles, demonstrated in this video, you can easily negate it, dismantle it, and shut it down the moment it appears. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next video.